All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about a massive strategic shift that's happening hundreds of miles above our heads. You see, India is basically building a kind of great wall in space. It's a huge move to lock down its national interests and, at the same time, flex its own technological muscle. I mean, think about it for a second. The shows you watch, the news you stream, a whole lot of that gets beamed down from satellites. Well, for some of the biggest broadcasters in India, the very satellites they've relied on for years are about to go dark. So the big question is, why? Why is this happening right now? And the answer, you'll see, has nothing to do with better broadcast quality or some corporate spat. No, this is all about geopolitics. It's about national security. This is a deliberate, carefully calculated plan to take control of the invisible infrastructure that's becoming more and more critical every single day. Okay, so let's break down what's actually happening, and just as important, when. This isn't some far-off idea, you know? This is a policy that's already in motion, and it has some very, very firm deadlines. And this timeline is pretty aggressive. India's space regulator, ION Space, has put its foot down, March 31st, 2026. That is the hard stop. By that date, every single service has to be off of these specific satellites, from a company called GSAT, which, crucially, has links to China. And believe me, the big broadcasters are already scrambling to get their operations moved over. So who are the main characters in this whole saga? Well, first you've got the government regulator, ION Space, who's making the call. Then there's AsiaSat, the Hong Kong-based operator right in the middle of it all. Of course, you have the huge media companies like Z and Geostar that have to make this massive switch. And finally, the replacements, a mix of India's own homegrown satellites and other trusted international partners. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter. I mean, why go through all this trouble, all this disruption? Well, the answer gets into a fundamental change in how India sees security in the 21st century. You know, in the past, India's biggest worry was just capacity. There was so much demand for satellite TV and data that the policy was basically wide open. Let any foreign operator come in and help fill the gap. But now, that priority has completely flipped. It's all about security and strategic independence, especially when you're talking about satellites linked to a geopolitical rival. And this right here is the central concern. A satellite isn't just a big TV antenna floating in the sky. It's what experts call dual-use technology. That means the exact same piece of hardware that beams your favorite TV show can also be used for military navigation, for surveillance, for reconnaissance. Suddenly, who operates that hardware becomes an absolutely critical national security question. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This official statement makes it absolutely crystal clear. The government sees space as a vital battleground for national defense and is actively pushing to become self-reliant. It's a top-down strategy to own and control its most critical infrastructure way up in orbit. Okay, so the why is clear. But can India actually pull this off without causing massive disruptions for millions of people? Let's take a look at the how, the technical firepower India has been building up for years. So the plan is this giant migration in the sky. All these services are being moved away from the Chinese-linked AsiaSat satellites and onto a combination of India's own powerful GS satellite fleet, plus some capacity from approved international partners, with even more coming down the line from big names like Starlink and OneWeb. And here's the key thing. India isn't starting from scratch here, not even close. It already operates a fleet of 19 of its own communication satellites. This existing infrastructure is the backbone of this entire strategic pivot. It's what makes this whole move possible. Now we get to the really cool tech. India's RISAT satellites. Think of them as its eyes that never sleep. They use this amazing technology called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, and it's basically a superpower. It lets the satellites see right through clouds and even in complete darkness. This gives them 24/7 all-weather surveillance that's absolutely vital for monitoring borders. Then you've got GSAT-7, which is the Navy's own dedicated eye in the sky. This single satellite gives the Indian Navy a massive 3,500-kilometer footprint over the entire Indian Ocean. It connects all their ships, their subs, their aircraft in real time. It basically gives them a god's eye view of a hugely strategic part of the world. And it's not just about the big picture. For the soldiers on the ground, there's GSAT-6. It solves a huge practical problem. How do you stay in contact in brutal terrain like mountains or deserts? Well, this satellite lets soldiers use small, handheld communicators, so they don't have to lug around bulky gear. And more importantly, they never lose contact. That is a total game changer for operations. So you see, blocking a couple of satellites is really just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. What does all of this tell us about India's grander ambitions for its future in space? Well, this is about way more than just security. It's also about a massive economic opportunity. I mean, look at this. The huge number of people in India who still aren't connected to the internet represents one of the biggest untapped markets on the entire planet for new satellite broadband services. And the numbers are just staggering. India's space economy is projected to be worth $44 billion by 2033. This policy is designed to make sure a huge chunk of that value gets captured by Indian companies, with the goal of quadrupling India's slice of the global space market pie. So here's the bottom line. This whole move is a catalyst. It's designed to kickstart an entire new space ecosystem in India. By creating this protected market, it gives a huge boost to domestic startups. But it also makes India a really attractive place for global giants like Starlink and Amazon. It's building an industry that serves both its security needs and its economic ambitions. Which leaves us with one final, really fascinating question to think about. As India builds these strategic walls in space, is it cementing its rise as a truly self-reliant tech superpower? Or does it risk isolating itself from the very global teamwork that's defining the future of space? That's the big question, and the answer is going to unfold in orbit over the next few years.